Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot using Sleeper. The roster positions for today's mock draft are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, a kicker, defense, and 5 bench spots. But before we can get on into this 12-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot using Sleeper, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton if you want to follow me on Twitter or X. Please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this mock draft. So the draft begins with Christian McCaffrey, followed by CeeDee Lamb, Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Bijan Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Breece Hall, and Puka Nacua. The draft started off very normal, right? McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb are going to be the 1-2 punch to begin a majority of drafts. Then things go a little bit off script with Ja'Marr Chase. A lot of time you'll see Tyreek Hill there, but I get the thought process of someone might wanting to take Ja'Marr Chase over Tyreek Hill. Bijan, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey being the first 3 running backs off the board is essentially going to happen every single time. The only player that I think you could swap here at the 110 and the 109 would be Puka and A.J. Brown being flipped. I think a lot of people are more confident in A.J. Brown compared to Puka Nacua. Now, personally, I have Puka Nacua ranked higher, so I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo that pick. That's personally what I would have done at the 1.9, but for a lot of people, they would rather have A.J. Brown. So based upon how fantasy football drafts have gone this summer, it really feels like at the 1.10, the smart decision is taking the wide receiver. And that is because at the 2.3, it is very likely, now I'm not saying it is the 100% lock of the century that you get one of these guys, but it is likely that you could get one of Jahmyr Gibbs, Jonathan Taylor, or Saquon Barkley at the 2.3. And guess what? If that does not end up happening, you can just go back-to-back lethal weapon cover style on the wide receiver position and still feel very confident. So while I love Jahmyr Gibbs, while I love Jonathan Taylor, and while I love Saquon Barkley, based upon how fantasy drafts have gone thus far, being so wide receiver heavy early on, it would feel almost like a mistake taking Jahmyr Gibbs when I think I could just get Jonathan Taylor in the second round, who I've ranked in the same tier. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and get A.J. Brown. Now, A.J. Brown was a guy I was a little bit cautious of a couple of weeks ago, but the more and more I've thought about it, A.J. Brown is the clear number 1 wide receiver on an offense that is going to be putting up a large point total week in and week out. They bring in Kellen Moore, which should tell you that the team is going to look to throw the ball more than in prior seasons, which would lead me to believe that A.J. Brown has the upside to finish as a top 5 wide receiver. He is one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League in terms of pound-for-pound ranking, one of the most skilled receivers. Jalen Hurts gets a lot of shit, but he is a very solid quarterback. So A.J. Brown at the 1.10 feels very safe, and he also has a large amount of upside. After Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, as well as Kyren Williams. So at the 2.3, in a normal draft, if this was my home league draft, I would be laughing straight to the bank and I would select Jahmyr Gibbs at this pick. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Samala Hayek, I do personally think it is unlikely for that scenario to take place where Kyren Williams, a guy who has been banged up a bunch in his career, banged up in the offseason, him going ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs to me seems ludicrous. Now, again, in your at-home league, is it possible for someone to go off the fucking reservation and make a crazy pick? 100%. We see it all the time. There might be someone at the 3rd overall pick that drafts Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. While it doesn't make sense for fantasy football, it's a logical thought process for someone to make, right? Mahomes is the best player in the NFL. Let me draft him at the 3rd overall pick. Crazy picks happen all of the time. But for senses of making things realistic for this mock draft, we will pass up on Jahmyr Gibbs. Understand, if this was my home league, I would be giggling like a little girl and I would draft Jahmyr Gibbs here. But since I don't think it's very likely that Jahmyr Gibbs would have been available at this spot, we are going to go wide receiver. I feel as though ETN, Achane, they're fine in the second round, but they need to be back end of the second round picks to me. In the early second round here, the only choice is wide receiver. Quarterback and tight ends typically don't come off the board until the third round, sometimes the early second, but the third round most likely. So I'm going to go ahead and draft a wide receiver here. For me, my highest ranked wide receiver is Marvin Harrison. I believe that in his rookie campaign, Marvin Harrison could be, in terms of targets, top 5 at the wide receiver position. The Arizona Cardinals are going to force feed the rock down this guy's throat. He is an amazing wide receiver prospect. You watch his tape at Ohio State and your mouth will start salivating. This is a guy that is ready for the NFL level in year one. Now, I get there are going to be detractors, people that are worried about drafting a rookie wide receiver this early. But think about Puka Nacua last year. I understand you got him for free, basically, but he was a top-end wide receiver. Jamar Chase, a couple of years ago, in his rookie year, lit the league on fire. So Marvin Harrison, I get the ADP. To some is a little bit scary, but I believe in Kyler Murray, and I believe in Marvin Harrison Jr., just like I believe in Joe Hendry. After Marvin Harrison, we got Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Allen, Devontae Adams, Travis Etienne, Drake London, Drizzy Drake London, Chris Olave, Sam Laporta, Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, Travis Kelce, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurts, Josh Jacobs, and wiki DJ Moore. So typically, you see the first quarterback come off the board at the end of the second round, this time in the middle of the second round. Not all that crazy, though, in my opinion. Personally, I do have Travis Kelce ranked ahead of Sam Laporta. So I don't love taking Laporta at the 210, but I definitely get the thought process with that, given how good the Detroit Lions should be. So 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks off of the board. Best quarterbacks available would be Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud. Best tight ends available would be Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, and Dalton Kincaid. Here at the 3.10, I don't feel as though we need to take a quarterback. I think there's a chance that one falls to the 4.3 or a tight end falls to the 4.3. And even then, I feel like through the first 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds, you don't even need to take a quarterback or a tight end. So it's not atop my priority. Sure, if Travis Kelce was here, I would be running to the draft board to draft him, right? I would be ecstatic about that. But that's not the fucking scenario we live in here. So looking at running backs, Pacheco, White, James Cook, Joe Mixon. To me, the pick here is Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco has been getting the Suka La Mink, the Gawk Gawk 9000, the Hawk Tua special by the beat reporters and by the coaches. Isaiah Pacheco is now going to be in a scenario where he is in the third down scenarios, in my opinion. This is a guy that is the clear number 1 running back on the team with more pass catching upside because Mr. Jerick McKinnon is now gone. Another one bites the dust. Isaiah Pacheco was catching a lot more balls towards the end of last season, and I truly believe that in this role on a Kansas City Chiefs offense that I believe is going to be bulldozing defenses with a lot of red zone upside for Pacheco. To me, in the third round, this guy could easily finish as a top 5 running back, especially now adding in the pass catching upside. I was huge on Pacheco last season. That paid off at ADP, but I think things are going to be even better this season, which is why I'm comfortable drafting him in the third round after Isaiah Pacheco, Roddy Piper White, Rashad White, which doesn't make sense at all. I don't know why I just thought of that nickname. We're not going to go with that anymore. Rashad with 2 A's, White, Patty Mahomes, Jalen waddled away till the very next day, and Michael Pittman Jr. At running backs, still available, James Cook, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones. At wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf. Now, in a lot of drafts here, I would probably just draft Cooper Kupp. Right now, I have 3 wide receivers that I believe have that top 12 pedigree that any given week could be the wide receiver 1. The LA Rams the drum beat is telling you that Cooper Kupp is going to be looking like he did prior to last year when he got hurt, right? He's still one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, which I've been telling you guys all offseason. But now that the beat reporters are talking about it, people will finally start to fucking believe me, right? I guess I was just a snake oil salesman or something, because more people now seem to be on the Cooper Kupp bandwagon. When I've been on the bandwagon all summer, I've been the commander of the Cooper Kupp train, and I really do believe he smashes this year. But since I do that in a lot of drafts where I start 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, we kind of are a one-trick pony sometimes. In my opinion, in mock drafts, you need to try different things, right? If you're normally a missionary guy, right? You're normally that hero running back guy. You get 1 running back in the first 3 rounds, and then the rest is like wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks. This time, we're going to go double running back in the first 4 rounds. Now, technically, this isn't a hero running back build because you are double hero running back build because you would need to draft 2 in the first 3 rounds. But this time, we're going to do 2 in the first 4 rounds. And we're going to go with James Cook. Now, I do have Joe Mixon ranked higher. Joe Mixon has been banged up for a lot of the offseason process. I think he's going to be fine, but since I do take Joe Mixon a lot in these mock drafts, I do definitely think you guys should be diversifying your teams if you're drafting in multiple different leagues. So we'll go with James Cook. Now, the biggest no for James Cook has just been that he has been allergic to the end zone. We have heard a lot of talks that they're really liking his pass catching ability. He is a guy that could rush for 1,000 yards, in my opinion. So if the touchdowns just go his way a little bit more this season, right? No more Stephon Diggs. Maybe they look to try to run the ball a little bit more. I think James Cook is a guy that has that top 12 upside due to his pass catching ability. I do think if you compare James Cook to Joe Mixon would be the safer running back, right? If you just take the injury out of the equation, if he's fully healthy. Because the Texans are one of the best offenses in the NFL. They add Stephon Diggs, so they're going to be able to move the ball more efficiently. They are a team that is going to dominate in the red zone. And they are a team that made Devin fucking Singletary look like Bo Jackson last season. So Joe Mixon, who's much better than Devin Singletary, should be in for a huge season. But we go with James Cook, which I'm also very confident in. I've been talking up James Cook all offseason. After James Cook, Malik Neighbors, Trey McBride, Cooper Kupp, CJ Stroud, Joe Mixon, Dalton Kincaid, Tank Dell, Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Amari Cooper, DK Metcalf, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker III, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Titty Boy T. Higgins, Kyle Pitts, George Pickens, and Ron Jones. So back up on the clock here. Best running backs available would be James Conner, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Ramondre Stevenson. While this is a 2-flex draft, you could go ahead and go crazy and draft back-to-back running backs here. 4 running backs, I guess, in a row, because we got Pacheco and Cook. You draft another one, and then another one like a fucking DJ Khaled song. Go ahead. I'm not going to do that, though, because I think that the wide receiver position is a lot more safe weekly and has huge upside as well. Keenan Allen is a guy that I've just kind of been off on all offseason, not because I think the guy's washed, but because I think Rome Odunze will surpass him as the number 2 pass catcher on this team. So we are going to go ahead here and go with Christian Kirk. Calvin Ridley is gone now on division rival Tennessee Titans. I understand that Christian Kirk didn't have the best year last season, but the Jaguars showed us prior to the Trevor Lawrence injury that the Jaguars could be one of the most legit offenses in the NFL. They were kicking in the teeth of defenses weekly. Christian Kirk being the number 1 wide receiver on a team with Gabe Davis, who is basically just a couple games a season merchant where he just shows up and has a good game. He is a AFC championship game merchant up against the Chiefs, where that one game has just fucking made everyone want to fondle the guy's nutsack. So, and then they draft Brian Thomas in the first round, but I still think Christian Kirk will be the number 1 option on an offense that could be scoring a bunch of points. And I believe Christian Kirk is a very talented player. And now with him being the clear number 1, the upside is very high. So after Christian Kirk, James Conner, Mark Andrews, David Montgomery, and Keenan Allen. At quarterback still available would be Anthony Richardson, Joe Shiesty, Dak Prescott at tight end, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, Brock Bowers. I am turning a little bit more of my tone from being an anti-Brock Bowers guy to being a Brock Bowers guy, but rookie tight ends notoriously are not the best in fantasy football. And we've heard some rumblings about how he's not great at blocking. He wouldn't even have been considered in the 6th round, but I just kind of want to talk about him. But there's also been some reports that like the guy can't get off the field because he's so fucking good. So it's making me a little bit confused, if I'm being honest, about Brock Bowers. And I don't think I really have a take right now either way, right? I'm no longer fully off board, but I'm not chilling in first class on board with Brock Bowers like a lot of people are. So again here, since we already have 2 running backs I'm confident in, I'm just going to go with a wide receiver. Now, in terms of upside here, I think that Rome Odunze probably has the most upside, but I understand when I select him here, and that's what we're going to do, he's a guy that's going to have to ride the bench to start off the season. Now, could he come out the gate and light the league on fire? 100%, but I think starting off the season, he'll be kind of 3rd in the pecking order behind Keenan Allen and behind DJ Moore, but I do think that he could end up being the number 2 wide receiver on an offense led by Caleb Williams, who I think is incredibly good. And I think the Bears are a team that's going to be good. And I think Rome Odunze is really fucking good. Now, to many, it might be too risky. Nick, you already have Marvin Harrison Jr., you already have Marvin Harrison, Maserati Marv. It's a little risky to go with 2 rookie wide receivers. But I don't really feel like there's a huge amount of risk with Rome Odunze due to the amount of upside he has. I think as you get deeper and deeper into the drafts, you want to be taking more shots on upside. And that's what Odunze is. If you want safety, you can go ahead and draft Jaden Reed, who I think is relatively safe, or Terry McLaurin, or even Rashee Rice, depending on his suspension length, which, it's fucking August 4th, but they still don't suspend him yet. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't get suspended at all, even though it's basically written in stone that he is going to be He's going to be suspended. After Rome Odunze, Evan Ingram, DeAndre Swift, Rashee Rice, Jordan Addison-Ray, Anthony Richardson, Jaden Reed, Joe Shiesty, Ramondre Stevenson, Terry McLaurin, Dak Prescott, George Kittle, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard, Brock Bowers of the Raiders. Back-to-back Raiders here with Zamir White, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Xavier Worthy, and Najee Harris. I will make a note. I didn't talk about it, but I did think about it. While I'm talking, I'm thinking about other things. I could have selected Anthony Richardson in the 6th round, which I've done a bunch in these mock drafts. But again, I try to switch things up here. Don't just be a one-trick pony on every single mock draft, even though I love Anthony Richardson. I talked about Anthony Richardson in yesterday's video if you did not watch that. And if you're enjoying thus far, 17 minutes into the video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. And if you're not new, are new, hit that like button as well. It helps me out a ton. Leaving comments also helps, and I love talking to you guys in the comments. I typically answer every comment. Now, am I going to answer 5 seconds after you comment? Probably not. But within the day, I typically answer every single comment. Great that we passed up on, now it's not great because shout out Tony the Tiger, that we passed up on Jaden Reed because I love Jaden Reed, but I also feel pretty confident in Chris Godwin. He's another guy that we talked about in yesterday's video as a guy that I think could easily smash. There have been reports that the team wants to use Chris Godwin in the Cooper Kupp role, which is just a buzzword, meaning he's going to be used in the slot. Now, I'm going to get the numbers incorrect, but for instance, last year he was using the slot around 30% of the times. Again, it could have been 37%, could have been 31%. It was somewhere in that 30 to 40% range. In the prior 3 seasons, besides last season, he was in the slot around 70% of the time. And in those 70% of the times, he was out there slinging dick like fucking Indiana Jones with his whip, right? He's kicking the door in on the defenses. And then last year, they don't use him that way, and he's less successful. So what's more likely? He goes back to being more successful, or he's just the same guy that he was last year? And the answer to me is he's going to be more successful. And I've always been a big fan of Chris Godwin. I'm a big fan of Baker Mayfield, and I like this Bucs offense. So Chris Godwin at the 7-10, to me, no-brainer. After Chris Godwin, Kyler Murray, the short king, Raheem Mostert, Hollywood Brown, and David Njoku. So we still don't have a quarterback. We still don't have a tight end. And at this point, it feels like we're close to the range where everything is the same at quarterback. We are basically in the range where everything is the same at the tight end position as well. The question is, are we going to want to pass up on the quarterback and just take the tight end that I like, or vice versa? Now, at tight end, I think after Jake Ferguson, it starts to really become a guessing game. And that game is basically going to be probably taking 2 of them and every single week cycling in between them. At quarterback, you could take your Brock Purdy potentially or your Jared Goff, feel confident that maybe you draft a second one and you try to rotate them every week. But I feel as though I would feel more confident in my decision-making at quarterback late compared to tight end. Because again, Goddard's fine, right? But we kind of know what Goddard is, right? TJ Hawkinson, he's a fucking great tight end, one of the better ones in the NFL, in my opinion. But he could miss half the season. More likely, he misses at least 4 or 5 games. Jake Ferguson, though, is the starting tight end on an offense that played very well last season. You already know that the Dallas Cowboys love to throw the ball, and you already know that Jake Ferguson is very integrated in this offense. Why is Jake Ferguson integrated in this offense? Because he's been playing with them, and because they didn't bring in any other talent at the wide receiver position on the team, any other pass catchers. So it's basically Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb, the Lampster, versus the world. Now, there's been a lot of buzz, the birds are buzzing, or the bees are buzzing. Fucking shout out to Barry B. Benson. The birds are chirping. The fucking Raven from Game of Thrones came in and told me that Jalen Tolbert's apparently a hot commodity in practice. Now, maybe in your best ball drafts on Underdog, link in the video description, might be someone that you might be interested in best ball, right? Because you don't have to ever determine when you start him. But in redraft, like, I'm not taking Jalen Tolbert unless, like, by the end of August, every beat is like Jalen Tolbert's the clear number 2. Then I would take him over Brandon Cooks. But right now, I think you need to just kind of take the beat reports with a grain of salt, right? Don't take them too seriously, but definitely log them in the back of your noggin. So after Jake Ferguson, Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, Ladd McConkey, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Jonathan Brooks, Brock Purdy, Big Cock Brock, Zach Moss, Austin Eckler, Brian Thomas Jr., Deontay Johnson, Keon Coleman, Tajay Spears, JSN, Jaylen Warren, Christian Watson, Devin Singletary, Tua, turn of the ball over, my main man, Tua Tagovailoa, Caleb Williams as well. Our team up to this point, we have every position filled out except for quarterback. We got Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, A.J. Brown, Marvin Harrison, Jake Ferguson, Christian Kirk, and Roma Dunze. So now we are back up on the clock here. I don't want to go wide receiver, but the running backs are dwindling at a rapido rate, and the quarterback position is also going to dwindle because in these sleeper drafts, they replicate your idiot league mates because this fucking idiot here drafted Jordan Love Me Tender and then drafted Caleb Williams. So while I don't think you necessarily need to draft Goff in the 9th round, he might not fall back. To me, by my 11th round pick, I don't think this guy should take 2 quarterbacks as I took Mahomes, so I'm going to take my wide receiver or running back first. While we do want another piece to play in front of Roma Dunze, there are some wide receivers that I could draft later that I might want to do that with, whereas the running back position is dwindling very, very quickly. We're going to go ahead and take Chase Brown here. Now, Chase Brown could end up being a certified busteroo, right? He could end up being just one of those guys that the beat reporters are wrong and Zach Moss is the guy. But more and more, it feels as though that Chase Brown and Zach Moss are kind of going to be 1A, 1B, where Zach Moss the 1A, Chase Brown's the 1B, and maybe Chase Brown ends up being the 1A. There have been reports from just one of the players on the team, I believe one of their tackles, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, and I don't want to say just the wrong name, just throw a random offensive lineman's name out there, and then the guy didn't say that, and then there's like the Bengals fans or the people that are paying so close attention they can remember the exact fucking lineman that said it, and they get on my ass. No diddy. I think that Chase Brown, one of the offensive linemen, said if I was in a fantasy football draft, I would draft Chase Brown in the 1st round. I almost said Chris Brown. Breezy. But yeah, Chase Breezy Brown. Now, was he a guy I've been hot on all summer? No. I was more of a Zach Moss guy, but if the beat is drumming a certain way, you kind of have to listen in some scenarios. And Chase Brown's a guy that has shown some explosiveness, some splash plays, but just hasn't done it consistently, but that's because Joe Mixon was in front of him. After Chase Brown, Trey Benson, Dallas Goedert, Jameson Williams, and Dalton Schultz. So here we're going to go ahead and get the Goffinator, Jared Goff. I'm fine with Stafford, Kirk Cousins, or even Trevor Lawrence as well. So we might just go wide receiver instead because we could stack one of those guys with the wide receivers we have on our team, I think, right? Because we have Christian Kirk. Oh, no, we don't have... I don't know why. Just for some reason in my head, we had Puka Nacua on this team, but Puka Nacua went right in front of us. So we don't have Puka Nacua, so we can't actually stack with Stafford. We could stack with Trevor Lawrence, though. I'll be honest with you, I just feel a little bit safer with Jared Goff. We know how frequently Dan Campbell is just going to pass the ball. We know on 4th down he's going to throw the ball. It could be 4th and 3. They might throw the ball. 4th and 1. They might throw the ball. Jared Goff is a lot better than people give him credit for. Now, do I think Jared Goff is like a top-end best quarterback in the NFL? No, but he's definitely better than people give him a lot of credit for, because it seems like no one thinks Jared Goff is very good, when in reality, if you just look at his statistics across his career as a Ram or as a Lion, he deserves credit. Again, and people just will never give it to him. So after Jared Goff, TJ Hawkinson, Jared Goff's wife. God damn, look that up. I saw some clip on TikTok that it was like an edit where it's like, bad bitch Puerto Rican, and everyone has seen, anyone that's on TikTok has seen this. If you haven't, you probably think I'm just some pervert looking up guys' wives. But yeah, so it's like a trend where it's like the player, and then it cuts to their girlfriend, and then back to the player. Jared Goff's wife is a supermodel. Very nice, but no one's as good looking as my fiance. Shout out to her if she's watching. So can't be being a pervert on here, even though she doesn't watch. There's literally no way. And if she does watch, she's not making it 26 minutes into a video. Can't listen to me for that long. Who can, right? After Jared Goff, TJ Hawkinson, Gus Bus Edwards, Ezekiel Elliott, Cole Kmet, Brian Robinson, Justin Herbert the pervert, Blake Corum, Cortland Sutton, Curtis Samuel, Jaden Stormy Daniels, Romeo Dobbs, A.D. Mitchell, Pat Fryer-Muth, Tyler Lockett in my pocket, Trevor Lawrence, Xavier somebody touching my Leggett, who just got hurt in practice today. Not too sure about the severity. Maybe when the video's uploaded, you guys already know. But I don't know right now because, again, I don't live in the future. After that, Zach Charbonnet and Khalil Shakira. So we're back to the wide receiver position here, and Jacoby Myers has been a target of mine all summer. Jacoby Myers is an incredibly underrated wide receiver. Now, he's on a team that likes to run the ball. I know that. That's why I like Zamir White so much. But Jacoby Myers had multiple games where he was a very viable flex, and I think he could be a very viable flex in plus matchups. And I think if Gardner Minshew starts, that's better for Jacoby Myers. So I think Jacoby Myers, again, he's been kind of underrated throughout his whole career as a Patriot and as a Raider. And I don't love the situation he's in, but I do like the player. And I think sometimes, like what we saw last season, even a shitty situation, guys like him can make it out of it. After Jacoby Myers, Gabe Davis, Jerome Ford, F-150, Jerry Jeudy, and Rashid Shaheed. Look in here, running backs are starting to feel like a straight-up hellhole. And we do already have Chris Godwin, who we could throw in for Rome Odunze. So I don't feel like we need to draft a wide receiver at the spot, and I think running back might be the smarter decision, even though I'm very confident in Pacheco or Cook. But we all know the running back position more likely to get injured, knock on wood. The statistics tell us that. Again, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, but even I know that. So I think here we're going to end up going with J.K. Dobbins. Now, J.K. Dobbins could end up fucking hurting himself showering in the morning. He could end up walking down the street and getting hit by the office linebacker or something and breaking all of his ribs, because we know J.K. Dobbins just gets hurt doing anything. But the beat is telling you that it's either going to be Dobbins or Gus Edwards, both of those guys who played on the Ravens, the offensive coordinator of the Chargers, former Raven guy, so former Ravens offensive coordinator. So it would tell us that J.K. Dobbins is going to be given a chance. The guy has been great when healthy, but he's never been healthy. So again, it's a risk, but in the 12th round, you should be taking risks. Chuba Hubbard, I think, is a little bit safer, though. I'm taking the home run shot on Dobbins because I think Dobbins is miles more talented than Hubbard. Is just Hubbard probably could be the starter all year in Carolina. And we kind of just know who he is, whereas Dobbins could blow out his knee going to go lift up his... I don't know if he has any kids, but like, you ever see I mean, I don't have any children, but I've seen people like throw your kid up and you catch him, right? He throws his kid up and he fucking steps the wrong way and he ends up with a broken ankle or something. So after J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Wright, and again, I don't wish injury on anyone. I'm just personification here. After J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Wright, Luke Musgrave, Mike Williams, Magic Mike Williams, Chuba Hubbard, Kirko Thuggins, Joshua Palmer, Matt Stafford, the ayahuasca man, Aaron Rodgers, Kendre Miller, Rico Dowdle, Justin Tucker, Brandon Aubrey, 49ers defense, Downs, Ben Sanat, the Libs' favorite kicker, Harrison Bucker. I don't take any type of political stance. It's just a joke. Don't come at me. Nick, you're this way or that way. I'm not going to talk about politics, so I probably shouldn't even have mentioned it, but we're 30 minutes in the video, and I thought it was funny, so I just said it. Fuck it. After that, Brandon Cooks and Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin, the Beats are beating his ass, right? They are laying a pipe for his ass like he's a plumber, but I don't think we should worry as much. But again, sometimes you got to follow the beat. Sometimes you got to stray away. Some of the beat reporters are like negative on him. The other beat reporters are positive. Fucking confusing. Very, very confusing. So Polk seems interesting. Dotson seems interesting. Quentin Johnston does not even remotely seem interesting. Quentin Johnston sucks donkey cock. Adam Thielen, Roman Wilson, who's hurt. Demario Douglas coming back from the injury. Running back, like Marshawn Lloyd basically got stabbed in the back. It seems like A.J. Dillon's going to be the lead back. Let's just go with our boy. Ooh, you know what? Let's go Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. Normally we go Demario Douglas. I think Demario Douglas will end up being the #1 receiver, but he might not because of the positive reports on the other players. So let's go Darnell Mooney, the clear #2 in Atlanta behind Drizzy Drake London. So I like Darnell Mooney. I've always thought he was a talented guy. Now, again, is he like the best receiver on earth? No, but I think he could be elevated heavily by the play of Kirk Cousins. After Darnell Mooney, Ty Chandler, Baker Mayfield, Evan McPherson, and Jake Elliott. So now we're going to go ahead and go with a defense. And the way you draft a defense in fantasy football is very simple. Now on paper, the Jets are the best defense, right? The Jets are one of the best defenses in the NFL. They have all of these talented players defensively, and you can just fucking read them on the screen. You can pause. If you want to read them, I'm not going to sit here and read a million names. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, all these guys, right? But the Jets play up against the 49ers week 1, and the 49ers might lay a smackdown brother onto them, or it might be a high-scoring game, and the Jets don't really do too well. The Cowboys, another great defense. The Cowboys week 1 play the Cleveland Browns. I like that matchup, so I'm more likely to draft the Cowboys over the Jets because I like the matchup more. The Ravens, they go ahead week 1, and they go up against the Kansas City Chiefs, which would be a huge no-no. The Buccaneers up against the Commanders. That makes sense. We're going to go with the Cowboys going up against the Cleveland Browns in week #1. Again, you want to draft a defense playing up against a not-so-hot opponent in week #1. And then after that, say the Cowboys play the next week, they're up against the Chiefs. They're not, but they are in this magical scenario. Then you cut them, pick up a new defense. I'll be making a video at the end of August that tells you guys 5 defenses to draft. My 5 main defensive targets for week 1. Some of them might have good matchups week 2, week 3 as well. But the goal, main focus, week 1. Then after week 1, you drop them like it's hot, like the Snoop Dogg song, and then you pick up a new defense. And every week you pick up a new defense, unless, of course, they have back-to-back good matchups. Sometimes towards the end of the season, if I'm being honest with you, like if you're bench players, you're not really using them, I just cut one of them and then I stash a defense for later on in the season. But that's a strategy we'll talk about like in week 14, not on August 4th. So our rest of the picks here, a bunch of defenses, a bunch of kickers, as well as Hunter Henry, Marshawn Lloyd, Cade Otton, and then the rest were kickers and defenses. Shout out to Dicker, the kicker, and my old bitch lame, but my young ho Koo. Now we're going kicker here, and we're going to go with Matt kicker of the Indianapolis Colts. At this point, I have not looked too much into my favorite kicker targets because I don't think it's very important right now at the beginning of August. By the end of August, I will have some kickers that I like for you guys. So to recap the squad, we got Jared Goff, the Goffinator, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, A.J. Brown, Marvin Harrison Jr., our tight end is Jake Ferguson, our flexes are Roman Dunze and Christian Kirk, our bench is comprised of Chris Godwin, Chase Brown, Jacoby Myers, J.K. Dobbins, and Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. Our kicker is Matt Gay, and our defense is Dallas Cowboys. Here is the entire draft board, or at least as much of the draft board that will fit on the screen. I am blocking a couple of the picks, but it is what it is. So if you guys want to look at the draft board, here it is. If you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Whether you are new to the channel or not, check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. I love you guys all so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your guys' day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another banger of video. Love you guys. As always, stay safe. Good boy.